Thank you everyone for joining us this evening. I'd like to express my gratitude to all of you. Before beginning this session, my name is Hassan Mohammadi and I'm curator at Two Rivers. Before we begin this session, we would like to acknowledge that Two Rivers Gallery is gratefully located on the traditional unceded territory of Lee-Chun. As the only venue outside the United States, we are excited to host Marking Time, Art in Time of Mass Incarceration at Two Rivers Gallery from April 26 to October 6, 2024, with the presentation of works by 28 artists and more than 100 pieces. This is the largest exhibition we have ever hosted at Two Rivers Gallery. Marking Time is the result of a decade of research by Dr. Nicole Fleetwood, debuted at MoMA PS1 in September 2020. This traveling exhibition concludes its tour in Prince George at Two Rivers Gallery. This presentation at Two Rivers Gallery and the Robert Frederick Gallery at the University of Northern British Columbia has been organized in collaboration with the Marking Time team, including Dr. Nicole Fleetwood and Stephen Fulwood. Dr. Nicole Fleetwood is the author of the award-winning book, Marking Time, Art in Time of Mass Incarceration. For those folks in Prince George, you can buy this book from our gift shop in the gallery. And so the book is published by Harvard University Press 2020 and is also Dr. Fleetwood is curator of this traveling exhibition. Marking Time was listed as one of the most important art moments in 2020 by the New York Times and among the best shows of the year by The New Yorker and Hyperallergic. The works of artists in this show reveal how punitive governance, predatory policing, surveillance, and mass imprisonment impact millions of people in the United States. This exhibition gives us the opportunity to turn a lens on Canadian context. As a part of a series of programs related to this exhibition, we're happy tonight to host 3 artists from this exhibition. This session will be followed by a talk by the artists, and we will have a question and answer at the end of the session. This event will be recorded and will be available on Two Rivers Gallery Facebook page. Please ask your question through Facebook chat box, and we will ask questions at the end of the session. I'd like to invite Stephen Fulwood, Marking Time coordinator, to talk about this project and introduce the artist. Stephen, thanks for joining us today.
Hey, good evening, everyone. For those of you who are on the East Coast, like myself and Susan, and for those of you who are on the Pacific Coast, which is 7:30. Again, my name is Stephen G. Fulwood, and I'm the coordinator of Marking Time. Before I begin, I want to thank George Harris, Isan Mohammadi, Brianna Rose, and the entire staff of the Two Rivers Gallery. You guys have been amazing shepherds of this exhibition, and we're very pleased to be partnering with you on this project. You guys rock. I also want to thank Susan, Henry, and Ndume for sharing their wisdom with us this evening. And I also want to thank those of you who logged in to learn a little bit more about the project and to hear these wonderful speakers. You're in for something very special. I want to tell you a little bit about Marking Time. I came to the project almost 3 years ago, shortly after the exhibition closed at MoMA PS1 in New York City. I was hired by Dr. Nicole Fleetwood to help move the exhibition around the country, and that country would be the United States. So Two Rivers, Prince George is our first gallery outside of the United States, and we're very pleased with that. We've been to 2 universities, 1 research center, and a public education center, and over hundreds of people have seen the exhibition, commented on it, and throughout the life of the exhibition, people have been moved and reached out to our artists and given our artists a number of other opportunities as well. I've had the honor of spending a lot of time with the art and some of the artists in the show. At most, we've had up to 50 plus artists in the show and as many as 140 plus art objects as well. We've had programming like the program we've had this evening, and we know that this work changes lives. But I want you to consider for just a moment, as an incarcerated artist, consider this. What could it mean to create art in solitary confinement? What could it mean to be punished because you create while being incarcerated or having your art confiscated? As an artist who's not incarcerated, think about the work that it takes to bring attention to a carceral system that we know what it is. It's punitive, it's abusive, and it's inhuman. I want to introduce to you these three artists that you will meet this evening. Henry Frank. He's the communications director for the William James Association and a teaching artist at the California Medical Facility, a formerly incarcerated business owner and exhibiting artist. He is from the great nations of the Yurok tribe and the Pomo tribe of California. His goal is to humanize people from experiencing incarceration and the indigenous peoples. Susan Lee-Chun was born in Seoul, Korea, and lives and works in Miami. She is an artist whose work uses a multidisciplinary approach to discuss identity politics. Lee-Chun focuses on the investigation of origin, meaning, and representation through the importance placed on mundane objects, ideas, and structures. She is fascinated with the production of cultural artifacts and constructs that represent and characterize the notion of the other. Lastly, but not least, we have Ndume Olatushani. In 1985, Ndume was wrongfully convicted and sentenced to death in Tennessee for a murder he did not commit. Born and raised in St. Louis, Missouri, Ndume had never visited the state of Tennessee before he was brought to Memphis to stand trial. The prosecution won a conviction by bearing the evidence of Ndume's, of his innocence and seating an all-white jury to convict him. Ndume spent 28 years in maximum security prisons, 20 of which were on death row. His story is one of resilience, perseverance, and the power of art to change lives. And each of the artists are going to speak about their art, and we're going to start with Henry Frank. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Stephen. And thank you to the staff of the Two Rivers Gallery. It's an honor to be here to talk about my art. Big shout out to Stephen and to Nicole for having the energy and the courage and the strength to put the show together and have it be successful as it is. So as you heard, I'm formerly incarcerated. I did 20 years on a 29-year life sentence. I've always been an artist, and the two pieces that are in the exhibit is Mine Prison Series 1, the Gray Goose, which is the transport bus to take people incarcerated from one prison to another prison. And it was one of the least favorites of my incarceration is being on those buses. The other piece is the visiting room, and that's Mine Prison Series 1 as well. And that one is to really commemorate the love and the kindness and the humanity that the families brought in. You know, for me, it was my father, but I had a lot of great memories being in there and just enjoying, you know, talking with my dad and about real stuff. So I'll just show you some pictures and talk about them as well. So I'll tell you the origin story of the prison, how it became. I didn't just like, hey, I'm just going to build a prison out of Legos. It kind of stemmed from Despicable Me 3 because they went to prison, and I actually saw like a mega construct thing, and I bought it for like $5, and it was this little cell, and I thought it was cool, so I put it up on my shelf, and I was looking at it, and I was like, man, that's not a real cell. I can build a better cell. So I did. And then I added another one and another one, another one, and it looked like a tier. So what you're seeing here is the original of how it began. So it was this Minion prison where they were working out and stuff like that with a gun tower. And then there's the people that they were fighting inside, you know, with the towel snapping and stuff. Then I entered it into the fair and got some honorable mentions for it. So I said, that's pretty cool. So I didn't know what to do afterwards after I got it back. I didn't have the heart to take it apart or anything. And then I was just looking at it again, and then I just started hearing, the officers walking down the tier with their keys, the doors slamming, people yelling on the tier, kites going this way and that way. And I said, "Ooh, I can turn this into an art piece." And so I started that journey, um, which led to eventually to the transport bus, which you see here. Um, and I did all the research on, like, looking at the pictures and all that stuff to make sure I get it as accurate as possible. But mainly it was the memory of the atrocity of the bus ride. They let you know from the beginning you step on the bus that your life has no meaning. Like, if you even look like you're going to escape, that they'll blow your head off. But they use a lot of profanity. And your belly chain, hand, wrist chained and then connected and all this stuff. And you had to go to the bathroom in the back, like a little portable outhouse in the back next to the gunner and all this stuff. And while you're chained up, so it just was not a pleasant experience overall. I mean, prison itself is not, pleasant, but this was like the most unpleasant. So I put it into Lego form. And then here is the visiting room. Uh, and this is the top view, obviously. And just looking at it, this is the front door when people go in. I personally never saw it. So, I went online and looked at it. But inside, I knew about the porters, about the photographer, about the kind of foods that they had there. And again, it was just one of those things that just like after I built the prison and the yard and the towers, which I'll show you a little bit later, that they need, somewhere to have visiting. And so the visiting room came into existence, and remembering some of the families that I saw there. So a lot of my work is based on real people and real experiences. Here is the prison. And I just completed this year. So I started in 2019. And then in, I think, March is when I completed with this sign right here that says Warden, Henry Frank. And it's just, I don't know. It was just something I had to do. So I did it. And this piece here, after it was done, my wife came in and looked at it and looked at me, and she said that she saw softness. So she's like, "Oh, it seems like it's been therapeutic for you." And I didn't think about it, like that until I really looked at it. And each cell is a memory that I had or someone that shared with me. Each guard in there was a representation of a guard that I met in there. And there's a CERT team because there was a riot in 2000, I believe 2001 in Corcoran on Sea Yard. And that was just things that were ingrained in me, but I was able to release some of that, well, a lot of that anxiety, the fear, the excitement, all these things that are trapped. And my mind, is not thinking about it, but my body was remember it. And when these pieces were created, a little bit more, it just softened up, a little loose, and I was able to become more complete. The most recent, since then, I did receive a grant from the Art for Justice Fund for the J80928, A Human Experience. And so we're going on to series 2, just and this is the Arts and Corrections in San Quentin. And this is some of the stickers. I do all the custom stickers and stuff like that. And these are all teachers that were there, and most of them are still there. A couple have passed on. And these are just some pictures on the outside of actual things that were happening at that time in that room, which is reflected on the other side. So, these Legos that have come into my life has really changed it, has really brought some healing. So I'm grateful. But before Marking Time found me, I guess, or I found them, we found each other, in my mind, like, what am I going to do with it? Is it going to just sit in my room forever? And just like I can experience and my wife can experience, but nobody else. And I felt that need to go out. And I felt that I needed to go out because people need to know about the atrocities, about the loneliness, about the intimidation, about the oppression, suppression, and the loneliness, and losing your voice or giving up your voice, just to fit in, just to get through the day on a good base. So I need to bring aware that the justice system as it is now, is failing. And it has been failing. But recently, I say in the last year, really, that there is some shift. And I'm witnessing it firsthand since I'm working in there too with the guys. So I get to hear from them how it's affecting them and how it's affecting the program. And, they're having more communication with their families through the tablets here, through the phone, not charging anymore. So it's just been really educational for me because I never thought I'd see the prison system of where it's heading and where it's at right now. So I think it's just very important to acknowledge that things need to change. And I'm very grateful for the marking time to give it that visibility, give it that platform that it has, on the national level, now international level, so we can have some change in the world because we're all connected. We all can support one another to get things done. I think that's it. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Henry. Thank you very much for your words. I appreciate. Up next, Suzanne, thank you very much for joining us today.
Thank you. I'm here in Miami, and I wanted to give land acknowledgement to the Miccosukee and Seminole tribe here. And in Miami, I've been here since 2004, originally from Chicago. A large part of my moving to Miami and kind of becoming part of this landscape here. Let's just make sure. Coming to Miami was largely, I guess it was a reawakening of my discovery with identity politics, or rediscovering who I was as a person, as an Asian American woman, but also in the context of the city. And the work that I started doing once I kind of moved here dealt a lot with textiles and creating these garments that had a lot to do with trying to immerse oneself or camouflage oneself into their environment. And I've always had this ultimate desire of being blonde and not being Asian. So this blonde wig has always been a large part of who I was and who I desired to be, and how I still kind of grapple with this notion of being a non-Asian. So largely the work that I started putting forth was photography based and creating garments and using textiles that I would come across in fabric shops here in Miami, but also very much connected to identity in the sense of using plaids and historically how they were either connected to uniforms, but as well as, being noted to be identifying factors of Scottish heritage, and then also how these certain fabrics had identified certain groups and identities. So what I wanted to use them as was kind of an object or a tool to kind of signify the ability or inability to camouflage and immerse oneself into the space. So what I started to do is not only make objects, but I started to create immersive spaces. And here, this was a project that I had done with creating a entirely fabricated space and soft sculptures, and then immersing myself with this created garment that would conceal my identity. But throughout the performance, and I would use myself within the performance, and I would periodically reveal myself, but then conceal myself back and forth. And whether or not I was able to, or in it, completely able to hide out in the space, was part of just a whimsical way to discuss these issues of identity politics. So what transitioned from like using fabrics and identity was to kind of create this like this brand that was connected to this fabricated gym, or this activity of recruiting people to become part of a culture. And these are garments, again, that I had created, and then now enlisting people to become part of the performance, and to create a brand or an identity that was whimsical, but also, fabricated, completely unreal, full real, for that matter. And it was a great way to kind of bring more people into the project. And this is kind of what manifested in this image. And there were a series of videos and performances that happened within Baltimore, Chicago, and in Miami. And I've always been very fascinated with how performances, as an artist, to be kind of this actor, but the vehicle of, presenting a concept of oneself, and then also, being as humorous as I could, but also trying to assume these roles of, identity politics, and kind of seeing where my place was in the context of society. So this was a faux cooking show that I had done in El Salvador. Everything was fabricated down to this space, this faux kitchen, all the cabinets, they're all obviously empty. Creating objects have always been kind of this fascination of creating this very false narrative. So these are all items that I had picked up and actually traveled with to El Salvador to create this faux country live cooking show that I had performed in front of an audience, and creating and bringing in objects that resembled what people would assume to be associated to what I, projected to them. And I think a large part, of how people would see me and read me, and then, working with garments became like a really important in the way of how to convey an identity. And I think that's kind of where my connection to the work that's at Two Rivers, that I was able to create and work with young women to create these garments that it was about claiming their voice, and trying to project some sense of identity through the confines of what they're given. And I think that's a challenge, and it's a lot of give and take. And as I kind of have worked through these like challenges as an artist of otherness, and creating like creating projects that were identifiably like interesting, but also, camouflage in the sense, like in this project, it was a tea platform, and it's a sculptural piece, but these objects were used and created to perform a tea ceremony within a gallery opening. And it was one way to kind of immerse myself into a gallery setting, but also hide within that context and have people become part of the performance and become part of the artwork, and giving them the opportunity to become, integrated with it. These are the last few sculptures that I'll show. These are more recent, and again, kind of going back to using objects that I wouldn't identify with, but that I think a lot of the times people would connect myself to. And these are objects that I would take and put into precarious situations, and they would become, they would be altered in the context of how we would read them. And this here, oops. So again, creating these like very historically reminiscent masks out of like hair extensions and, doe-eyed anime type of eyes, things that are very attributed to Asian culture. And then these are the last few sculptures and sculptural works that I've done. And I'm going to close this out.
Susan, I wonder if we're missing some of the images. The one image that we saw was the image of the woman standing beside the mirror.
Oh, did that not come through?
Couldn't
Oh,
see
did the images not, did we not scroll through?
no, we just saw the first image.
Okay.
Would you like me to share the others?
Yeah, that would be great.
Okay, sure.
It was exciting to hear you say all this stuff, Susan. I was like, I must be missing it.
No.
And yeah, really excited about what you're doing.
Okay, sounds great. Yeah. Can you see?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So this is.
Thank you.
No worries. So this one.
Well, you on campus, you got to come back. Wait, don't you see that big Austin church?
Ndume, can I ask to? Oh, yeah, thank you. And the next.
Yeah, and largely, I've always been fascinated with how garments or the things that we wear, things that we possess, aren't truly, they can be used as defining characteristics of how we identify, but also how others identify us. And the project that I'm immensely grateful to have worked on with the juvenile detention center here with young women, was to create those sweatshirts. And it's heartbreaking to have worked with a collective that we know that we go in, and it's time that's so valuable, and to create artworks that they're not able to keep or they weren't able to display or possess. So, they're almost like they function as my own like recollection of that time. And it's one of the times that I feel so grateful to have experienced and to also have been a part of. of that enriching moment.
So please let me know, Susan, which one you would like to add more words. I think that's everything we have. So
Thank you.
thank you. Thank you very much, Susan. Thank you for sharing experience with us. Up next, Ndume Olatushani. Thank you, Ndume, for joining us today.
I want to say good evening to everybody first off, but I also too want to just follow up and reiterate what the two previous artists said about you know, it being an honor to actually just kind of be a part of this whole thing. I really appreciate the work that you guys have been doing. I think it's some important work that Stephen and Nicole you know, built it, and people is actually being exposed to it, and hopefully being provoked and moved in ways that we need them to be. My name is Ndume Olatushani, and I'm visiting my hometown in St. Louis, Missouri right now. And you can hear the doorbell in the background actually, but I'm visiting family here in St. Louis this weekend, or this last couple of few days. I'll be headed back home tomorrow. But what I want to do is just kind of talk a little bit about, I mean, my work, and mainly about what art has done and continue to do for me. I mean, it's obviously it's our art that brought us to this point that we are here tonight on. What Stephen said in the beginning is true, that I was falsely accused of a crime and was convicted and ultimately sentenced to death for it. And but for a lot of people, good people involved, including my family, that I have no doubt that I would actually be sitting here participating in this deal tonight. And so I did spend 20 years on death row. Out of the 28 years I spent in prison, and it was trying to find my way through the isolation of sitting in a 4-by-9-foot cell that I couldn't even stretch my arms out. I couldn't even stretch my arms out wide. And I was sitting in this cell for 23 hours a day. Every time I come out, I'm chained and shackled like some imaginary monster, only to be shuffled a few feet to, you know, either go to the shower or the visiting room, or out to the so-called yard, which was a concrete cage. But it was in those circumstances that I found art, and I'm tempted to say before I you know, got started, that I was not an artist. But the reality is, I think that we all born artists. I think that we all born with a creative gene, and we see it in a lot of different ways. You know, and so for me, like I said, being under those circumstances, and the thing that really led me to art was with unfortunate circumstance. My mother was actually killed in a car accident. And prior to this thing actually happening to her, I had commissioned a guy on death row with me at the time, who was later executed, to do a portrait of me, because I wanted to send it to my mother. And she never got a chance to see it, and if she would have, she would have knew it didn't look like me, because the guy did this portrait. It didn't look nothing like me, and when I received it, when I got it from him, the whole time I'm looking at it, I'm thinking, man, I could have did a better job and kept my money. And so, like I said, this thing happened to my mother, and as I was trying to pick myself up from that, is when I really, just kind of bent in and, and just kind of tapped into my creativity, because it was the thing that literally and figuratively saved my life, actually. Art, I mean, in that small space, first off, it allowed for me to actually, just kind of create this kind of metaphoric space, so to say, because I could sit down and, for hours and just get lost in the work. And being able to do that, it certainly, like I said, gave me a whole lot of space to just kind of become creative in this 4x9 for sale. And it was through my art, really, when I said literally saved my life, because like I said, it's, I hope that I'm not so psychologically messed up by what happened to me, but it certainly helped me survive that mentally, and physically as well too. But it was also too through my art that people were drawn closer to my, just kind of proximate to my situation, because I was not one of them people sitting in prison, talking about, my innocence. I mean, if you couldn't help me get out of prison, then it wasn't even necessary for you to know. So if somebody came and reached their hand out to me in friendship, I'm talking about people from the outside, pen pals or whoever it were, that, I mean, I was not one of the people, talking about what had happened to me, because the thing that I knew, and I know it's true, that most people walking around outside of prison is kind of bought into this idea that, well, hell, everybody in prison say they're innocent, because that's been, supplanted in our kind of psyche intentionally. And so I was not one of them people, but if it was, you could help me, then certainly I wanted you to know my story. But like I said, it was through my art that that people was drawn and found out, came close enough for me to let them know what was actually happening to me. And like I said, it took a lot of work from a lot of good people to actually save my life. When I think about what it took to actually save my life, as opposed to this sham process that I was put through, as Stephen said, I was I'm sitting in St. Louis now, which is where I was sitting when the crime actually happened. Had never been to the state of Tennessee until the people actually took me there and put me on trial for the crime. And so I go through this sham process, and my trial didn't last, but actually a couple of days. It was a 2-day trial. It took more time to actually for them to finagle and seat an all-white jury against me in Memphis, Tennessee, which was a majority Black city then, just as it is now. That this young Black male been accused in the South of murdering a white person in a majority Black city, but I ended up with an all-white jury. And the people in my case knew I was innocent, because all the evidence that they had of my innocence, they withheld it and fabricated this whole case to actually do exactly what they done to me. And so, like I said, that process only took a couple of days with respect to this, like I said, this actual trial. It took 3 days to pick a jury, and 2 days. Within the next 2 days, I was found guilty. And so, but like I said, it was the people in my case, they knew I was innocent. That didn't matter to them. The only thing they wanted to do was close the case. They certainly didn't want to solve it because they knew I hadn't done it. And so, you know, like I said, it took this short process to give me that, but it took not only the years that they took from me, but it took a whole lot of work, like I said, on a part of my family and friends and people and strangers. And I say to the people that's on this, looking at this, wherever you're looking at it from, that I'm sure there's somebody sitting in the jail cell. Most people sitting in prison don't even hear from people outside of that. And it may very well be that, you know, it could save somebody's life. I was actually a friend of mine actually committed suicide while we was on death row because of the lack of contact that he wasn't getting from the outside. And so I would say that anybody, wherever you at listening to this, or find out the people that's sitting in wherever you at, sitting in prison. If you don't do nothing, pick a postcard up and you ain't got to put your information on it here. You could go on the website and pick a name and send a postcard and let them know we know you exist. I'm telling you, it could save a life. I know it seems simple, but it's true. Most people sitting in jails and prison do not get visits. Certainly ain't getting phone calls. And I'm saying that, you know, when I think about, you know, even this art, I mean, I found art where it found me, but some of the best artists I know are still sitting in prison. And I really love what Stephen and Nicole is doing, is just raising this awareness. And like I said, it's truly an honor for me to be a part of it. You know, like I said, art saved my life. I got an exhibit I've been working on for the last couple of years that I've been working on that's traveling around the country now, where I've been doing, took some historical information and photographs from lynchings here in this country, and just trying to relate that to not only they just had a black woman killed by the police here. She called 911 and the people showed up at her house and killed her. And in this particular exhibit I've been working on is actually I had the idea for a long time, and it was actually, and just kind of fast forward, it was actually in 2017 when these racists was marching in Charlottesville, North Carolina here in the United States. And this guy that's running for president again, Donald Trump, made a statement that it was good people on both sides down there. And it was then that I knew that this project that, like I said, that's traveling around the country now, it was time for me to actually start on it. Because when I look at some of these historical pictures, this documentation from how these multitudes in the crowd would be smiling out while they lynching somebody, and I'm sure it was good people, and people would say it was good people in that crowd too, even though they was complicit in the most horrendous thing that I can imagine. So that's the exhibit I've been working on. Like I said, that, and I'm also doing some other work, trying to get ready because I was fortunate enough to, like Henry, you know, to actually get a grant to work on this project. And so I'm just trying to work on this other project. So once this is over, I'll come with some more work, more akin to you know, what I really like doing, and hopefully in the late fall or early next year, people would get I have that up and running. It's called Black Joy Tapestry. In fact, the piece that's in Two Rivers Gallery, that's actually the first piece of it. the piece that you guys have at the gallery is the first piece of this whole series, Black Joy Tapestry. And so so that's I'm looking at, like I said, the end of this year and not early next year, have that up and running. But and I still been doing some work with trying to do outreach with young kids and introduce them or try to get them to introduce to their creative gene through art. In fact, I just finally, and I'm excited about this. I just finally was able to actually buy a commercial building. And so I'm actually working on trying to just put together the funds where I can create a art space for young people to come and, to get involved. And like I said, come and be inspired like art didn't inspire me. And so that's another thing I've been working on. I know that the work that Henry and Susan, they talking about that, just doing outreach to, people that's sitting, sitting where they sitting. I'll actually be traveling the end of August. I'm scheduled to travel from the 25th of August until the 4th of September. I'll be in France. And part of the work that I'll be doing over there, I will be going inside some prisons and, talking to people about art, some of these prisoners. And also, too, I'll be going to some different schools over there and just engaging with young kids as well, too, for the, the time that I'm there as well, too. So, like I said, I've been excited about that. Been a little bit worn out because over the summer I had a couple of my younger nephews with me, and so but other than that, I've been just trying to stay connected and doing the work. And like I said, I close by simply saying this here again. I really appreciate this opportunity to actually take part in this here because I think it's some important work. I think it's very important work. Thanks for having me.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Ndume. For as part of other programs for marking time here in our gallery, please stay tuned. We're gonna have a film screening next month in August with the collaboration with the College of New Caledonia, and also we're gonna have another artist talk sometime in September. September 12th, and also Stephen also coming to Prince George. We're very happy to host Stephen again, hopefully by the end of September, and where Stephen and Michaela McGuire will talk about, they explore the systematic oppression and also cultural states. So just to make a comparison between things in states, as I said, this exhibition is through this exhibition, we look at the things in Canada. So we'll talk about systematic oppression and carceral system in Canada as well. Thank you again, guys. Let's have some question and answer. So I will start questioning Henry. I've not seen any question yet, but Henry, so I would like to share your works here in the gallery, the works that we have.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so this two, so this one and also this one. So I have a question, Henry, in terms of like the idea, and also about so we usually associated, like to me it was interesting in terms of the way you connected the idea of creating something with Lego, which is usually we used to see the kids playing with the Lego. So it was kind of ironic to see creating something with something that we usually suppose that children play with them. But something interesting is to me is the desire of I can see through those two space. You try to make a space which at one hand, there's a desire for being outside, like visiting someone, or maybe going outside by the bus to like see the place. So I can see there's some sort of desire on one hand, and at the same time, the reality that you are like you're still inside. So the dichotomy of inside and outside space. How do you came up with this idea, and how do you define the space with that?
Ooh, I will start off with just like, I didn't choose it, it just kind of just came to me and I just started building. Um, I would say, I'm sorry, I lost my train of thought. Um, I don't know. It just was built, just I didn't have a plan for it. I didn't like do a blueprint or anything like that. I just started making it. And I knew when a brick wasn't supposed to be there and look for the brick that needed to be there to represent, the things I remember from the cell, from the yard, from R the towers and stuff. Even though I never been inside of them, in my head, I built this little world. And yes, they are very familiar to the children. Probably back in our day. Now, there's like collectors and all this stuff. I mean, I go to the Lego store and they got sets for, like $800 up to like $3,000, and it's crazy. And one of the things I remember, I was in Target one day, just a little sidebar real quick. I was in Target one day and I was just going down the Lego aisle, and there was a teenager in there, a teenage girl, and then two of her friends came around the girl, or came around the corner right there to the aisle, and she was like holding the lady that was in there. She was holding one of the boxes, and the other two girls, one of them said to the other one, like, "Dang, we didn't know you had Lego money." It's like, I almost fell out. I was like, wow, that's crazy. And people, I share this story, and like people use that now. But what was interesting, I have showing the Lego pieces like all over Marin here and Vallejo, and just a lot of local places around this spot. And I get to go and do the artist talk and stuff, and mingle amongst everybody and listening to people. And I remember, a young kid and talking to his mom, and her was like, "That's Legos, mom." And she's like, "Yeah." She's like, "I don't recognize that set, or what set is it? I haven't seen that set." She's like, well, it's custom." And then the kid's like, "Well, what is it? I mean," and then, I was just like, I kind of blanked out because like, wow, at this level now, this option or this choice that you got to make as a parent to tell your children, what is this building, what does this represent, and it's about humanizing those people that are in there. So I want to create that conversation, so when somebody gets asked that by a young person, that it's up to them to say, "Oh, it's just a play set," or whatever it may be, or like, it's a place where people that commit crime go to, now rehabilitate themselves. Before it was just punishment, but now to rehabilitate themselves. And, a lot of people are saying, "Oh, your uncle's, is away on a trip," all this stuff. So you can't tell them what was going on because, they can't handle it, but they can if you talk to them, in a language that they can understand at that moment in time. And then you get more complex as they get older. I was invited to the Alcatraz formerly incarcerated speaker series, and it was a ton of people. I didn't expect, I mean, it had to be like 200 plus people there. And I always say, before I talk, like, I'm going to just speak my truth. I'm not glorifying anything or anything like that. I'm not promoting it, just sharing my truth, and the piece that I share relevant to how I got to where I'm at today. And at the end, everybody was like cleaning up, everybody was leaving, and I was talking to one of the rangers there, and this little kid, I would say probably 8 or 9, came running up, and he stood right by the podium, and he's like staring at me, and I'm like, okay. And then I just stopped there and I said, "Excuse me 1 second, I think this young man wants to talk to me." And so I turned and I said, "Hey, can I help you out, bud?" And he's like, "Yeah, I have a question." I said, "Cool." He's like, "What?" And he's like, "Can I ask you a question?" I said, "Sure." And he said, "What is it that made you stop doing bad things?" And I was like, whoa. And I'm like, well, how do I answer this for this little dude to really, embrace it, or at least have a understanding of it? And I just paused for a second and I looked at him. I said, what changed was I realized that my life had worth, like every other human being on this planet has worth. And so when I see another human being, I see that they have worth. So I don't want to cause any more harm to anybody else. What I want to do is, uplift people, you know, and sometimes some people don't want to be uplifted. So you just gotta, say goodbye and, keep doing your walk. And he was just like, thanks. And he just ran off. And I was like, what was going on in that little man's life, and hopefully what I said, if it deterred him, if I don't know what the situation is, but I'm just hoping that, it did positive ripples effects in that community, wherever he's at, and in his family and in his life. And then 2 weeks later, real quick, I was in my class in the prison there in Vacaville, and I was sitting there, and one of the students asked me, and he's like, "Hey, how do you stop effing up your life?" I'm like, and it hit me like, "Whoa, that's the exact same question that little guy asked me," And I gave him a little bit more complex um, definition or examples, or just the explanation of just how I learned from it, and so he could really grasp it at that time. So I think the work, the Legos, has been a blessing, for me, for the community, because I'm out there and talking to them. And my thing is, like, if I'm there, like earlier, I'm sorry, I had to drink water because I was like having a mini panic attack and stuff like that. My mouth got really dry, so that's why I kind of just end it right there. But dang it. Oh yeah. All right, I forgot right there. I'm sorry.
No worries. Thank you very much, Henry. Thank you. I have a question for Ndume. So was art and creativity encouraged in your experience of the prison system? And how did you sustain the practice of art making while in prison?
Yeah, I think that, well, first off, when I first was locked up, they you have to be in the program, the arts and craft program is what they would call it, and they only had like a few, slots, so-called slots that they would allow, even though this was in your cell. They still would just kind of use it, have just a few slots. And from their perspective, I'm sure was that, they felt like, it was a form of control, because they could have just came and gave everybody pencil and paper and say, draw some or do something. But like I said, they create this so-called arts and craft program. So you had to kind of be show that you ain't getting in no trouble program, so to say, is what they would call it. If you program it, then you can apply to get in the arts and craft program. And if you had money, you could send out and buy the supplies if you had money. Or you can actually have somebody to order it from some vendor and have it mailed into the prison. And so, and when I first, everybody know how long a paintbrush is, but when you bought a paintbrush, they would cut it down to like 4 inches. And so, under this idea that they didn't want it to be used as a weapon. And the whole time I was in prison, the people that had the paintbrush was not the people that was trying to hurt nobody with it. But that was the pretext that the prison would use to, like I said, just cut our toothbrushes down. But what I would actually do is take like old newspapers and just kind of wet it, or magazine pages or whatever, and just kind of wet it and roll it up around the little nub of a paintbrush stick and just kind of let it dry. And once the wet paper was dry, it would actually be as hard as the wood stick already on there. And so, and one thing too is that you can only have a certain amount of, supplies in your cell. You can only, at the time, and it kind of got relaxed a little bit over the years, even though the policy was still on the books that you can only have 2 completed pieces of artwork in your cell. So once I painted 2 things, then I had to, in order for me to get other material, I had to mail that stuff outside, get it outside of the prison. And so, but in terms of, how I was inspired, like I said, and I would certainly encourage the viewers. The space that I was in is smaller than probably smaller than the New York size bathroom. Like I said, for the viewers and people participating in this, I would encourage them to, just look at what a 4 by 9 foot space actually looked like, and think about, excuse me, think about having to be in that space 23 hours of the day. And, just try to imagine that, because that's what I was up against. And like I said, art gave me this opportunity. Art gave me this opportunity to, like I said, almost kind of create this alternate world, so to say. I never forgot I was sitting in prison facing the death penalty, but it still allowed for me to, just kind of sit down and get lost for hours. I wish I still had that kind of space now, actually, the paint, but I would actually, I might sit down 5, 6, 7 hours, painting, and without, just even noticing the time, then going back. So in that sense, like I said, it gave me that space. But man, I can't even really put in words what what art did for me with respect to having me sitting here participating in this here, hopefully a sane person. Because living under the conditions that certainly millions of people, 2+ million in this country, sitting in prison having to deal with every day, it's certainly enough to actually just crack somebody psychologically. But yeah, that's art saved me, it really did.
Thank you very much, Ndume. So before asking Stephen question, so for those who are with us in the Facebook, you can write your question in the Facebook live feed. Stephen, before asking Susan a question, I just want to ask you, do we have a confirmation of which artist will be joining us for September talk?
I do. James Yaya Huff, who is featured in the show, will be joining us on September 12th. The other 2 artists have yet to confirm.
Thank you very much. Susan, I have a question for you. What sort of introspection do you go through while working with textile art? The creation, I know, is often long and you can get lost in your thoughts. Were there any moments where you really got lost in your mind?
Oh, I feel that happens all the time, because it's very much intuitive, but also because it is very much about the self. I think exploring one's own identity, environment, space, situation becomes such a dynamic, influential space to draw from. I don't know what I would do if I couldn't discuss my own, experiences. And I think, Henry and Ndume, you guys speak volumes of that. And, it's largely about voice when you think about it. Trying to find one's voice and be confident and finding an audience to hear you. But as artists, like, you can make work and it can fall on deaf ears, always. But I think for me, a lot of the materials that I come across, they whisper, or they kind of have this connection to the things that I'm thinking about. And I feel as though that's, the three of us here on this conversation, that's how we're all we vibe on that similar practice, because, for Henry to come across these Lego pieces, it's characterized as being toys, but it can be put into such a very heartfelt, context. And, even with Ndume, like, your story is just, that's symbolic enough to really, motivate so much of a powerful work. And your practice isn't just about making art. It's about actually spreading that, like, the experience that you've had. And I think, for me, again, it falls back on that. It's about my own experience, and as well as all our own. It just happens that we find art as the perfect tool to speak on our behalf. And I truly wish, like, this would be kind of a I don't know, rehabilitative tool that could be taken into situations. And it's not given to all. And I think those that are incarcerated aren't provided with that opportunity, because it's more about taking away liberties instead of providing and giving to a community that's been very much stripped of their identity. So, if there's anything that comes from this amazing exhibition and experience that I've had in being a part of this traveling exhibition, is that, art is the pinnacle of being able to express one's own experience. And we're all very, very fortunate to be connected in this way, and by way of artwork or art making. So
Thank you very much, Susan. Before asking Henry another question, I would like to share your works in our gallery for those who are not able to visit our gallery at this time. So this is the works, the installation by Susan. Thank you very much. I have a question for Henry. So I'm curious about the juxtaposition in Henry's work between the medium of Lego, which is so playful and free, and his exploration of oppressive structures through this medium. How do you think about this tension in work, Henry?
Not quite sure what the tension,
How do you think about this tension in your work? Like at one side there is like it's very so playful, it's free, but at the same time you're exploring a oppressive structure, oppressive
I
system.
gotcha.
So how do you find the tension between those two?
For me, I guess they're like one and the same, because like I said, I don't like plan stuff. I guess I do a little bit because I do make the stickers and all that stuff, as it's going along, and trying to think about the sizing. That's the whole thing, it's just trying to make it to scale as much as possible. from my experience. And like I said, for myself, it's been very therapeutic, very healing. Um, and I tell the guys in my class about it, and I take in pictures and stuff like that, and I get feedback, from them, and they feel, represented. They feel like, you know, where they're at is being seen, because like I think Ndume said, you know, they just don't, they're just cut off and they don't know what's going on. A lot of them do have visits and stuff like that, which is great, but it's still, you only get a abridged version of like really what's going on in people's lives and what's going on in the world and stuff like that. Just like you have to give an abridged kind of of your life out there, because you only can say so much. You don't want to worry your people and all this stuff of what's going on. So, it's just, I don't know. It's just, for me, it was just perfect combination of bringing them together, to bring complex, constructs of society, into these pieces. And they're great. Like some of, they make me smile. They do. Like the arts and corrections room. And I didn't do this on purpose, but the arts and corrections room and the Visi room are out of white bricks, and those were two spaces that were neutral, two spaces that were safe, and you weren't continually, saying your number, J0928 or inmate and all this stuff, you're in there, you were called by your name and stuff like that. And the other pieces are all gray, and just flat. And because they want everybody just to be the same and all the stuff. And, you can lose your identity. So I can understand where Susan's coming from, because, you know, earlier I said, we gave up or we lost our voice, or we gave it up. For myself, I have to speak, because like I gave my voice up because I didn't want to stand out. I didn't want to be like, oh, to be recognized. Oh, that's inmate Frank. That's, J28. I want to be part of the crowd. And it's hard being, a larger Native American, that, and I was smiling. So, people recognize me by smiling, Um, so it was just, the best way I can say it is just, the spirits guided me, and they're still guiding me. The next four pieces I'm going to do is the Chow Hall, the Sweat Grounds, North Block, and that will be a 5-tier with all the steps on the side, the stairs on the side, and then the officer station, the phones, all the stuff, and then all the people will be telling the stories in those scenes. And then the yard, I do want to recreate the 2001 riot on that yard, and just to have all of those pieces that need to be there. So, so I guess I do some planning, because I do think about transportation now, since I had to, send it over to Rhode Island and all that stuff, So I was like, okay, well, I got to think about transportation, make sure it doesn't fall apart and all this stuff. And now I got to think about, loading these things into my car, because I think the yard is going to be at least, 4 feet by 4 feet, if not bigger. So I need to break those down where I can take them apart and then put them together when we get there. So there is some thought into that. But like I said, just the tension and just the playfulness, really just connect to one another. I don't know how to explain it. It's just, one and the same, like I said from the beginning.
Thank you very much, Henry. Thank you. Before asking Ndume another question, I would like to share his work here in our gallery. So this is the work by Ndume in the So, Ndume, I have a question for you. Black Joy Tapestry is a very beautiful mixed media piece. Do you prefer to use this mixed media? Is there any meaning behind that textural experience your artwork showcases?
I'm not sure Ndume is on the call anymore.
Okay.
Yeah, I think he might have been disconnected for some reason.
Okay. So I have another question for Henry. Sorry, Henry, lots of questions. So a bit of funny question for you, Henry. How many logos do you end up stepping on while creating your works? And more serious, have you ever found yourself hitting any limitation with your chosen medium, or are you always able to figure out ways to make things work?
I don't know how many I've stepped on, but you can have those little dots and you can feel it when you step on those things. It's like, but let's see. What was the last part?
So the last part, have you ever found yourself hitting any limitation with your chosen medium, or are you always able to figure out ways to make things work?
I have hit them, and that was like in the early stages, but since then, like Lego has really expanded and they're making all kinds of new pieces. And so that's why it took so long to put the prison together, because I kept taking it apart and putting on, you know, the upgraded pieces until it was complete. And I felt it was complete at the beginning of this year. Once I finished it, there's nothing else that could, you know, represent it the way I want it to. I don't only work in Legos, you know, that's just one of my newest. I was pencil, you know, drawing, ink, and then I got into watercolor and acrylics and did collage, and I do poetry and writing, photography, getting into the stop motion now. I just got this new thing to, yeah, because some of my friends and colleagues like, oh, you should, you know, do a stop motion with your Lego things. And I'm like, oh, okay. But now that I have this new tool, I forgot what it's called, but it holds the light and the camera exactly perfect. And I did a test drive on one of my G.I. Joe classified figures to move them, and it came out really close. Oh, I can do this. You know what I mean? So, but also in my Lego pieces, there's like, you know, I created like little pieces for it that are not Lego. Like on the tables here, these little books and our little pencils. I actually ordered them off of like Amazon and like for doll houses and stuff to a certain scale, because it just couldn't. They didn't have a piece small enough to represent the pencil the way I wanted to. Like I said, I try to keep it, you know, pretty proportional. So, but I can, you know, whatever I can think of, you know, and picture, I can figure out how to make that.
Thank you, Henry. Thank you very much. Ndume is back.
I'm
With a
sorry,
No worries. While you were disconnected for a while, I show you your works here in the gallery. So, but I have a question for you. Black Joy Tapestry is a very beautiful mixed media piece. Do you prefer to use this mixed mediums? Is there any meaning behind that textural experience your artwork showcases?
yeah, no, you know, this series is the, I guess the, like I say, this lynching series I've been working on. It was the first time I really kind of started exploring using this fabric. You know, trying to recreate some of this, you know, some of these horrific, you know, expressions that was, you know, about some of these lynchings. But the Black Joy Tapestry series, it actually, you know, it's kind of, it was kind of off the cuff that I actually came up with it, because Stephen, I don't know if you remember this, sir. Stephen reached out to me about this project and wanted, you know, asked me to get involved, and I was in the middle of doing some other stuff, so I didn't get right on it. So I felt a little crunch for time, and the series that I've been working on, like I said, is really, I mean, it's, you know, it's, like I said, I'm looking at some horrific, you know, scenes, what happened to people, lynching them from trees and burning them and this type of stuff. And so when Stephen actually reached out about the project, and like I said, I wanted to do something, you know, because I felt a little pressed for time. And it was then that this idea of this Black Joy Tapestry was actually kind of born in my mind, actually, because this stuff that I had been working on is, like I said, it's sort of like, as I'm sure what Henry kind of experienced a little bit when he's sitting there thinking about, you know, this system that he went through and just kind of do this thing with these Legos to actually try to recreate it in his own expression with them. That it was the same thing kind of happening with me about looking at this other dark history of Black people in this country. And so the Black Joy Tapestry series was this kind of response to, okay, I need to do something really light. And like I said, I had to do something quick. So that's when this idea of the Black Joy Tapestry was formed, because I wanted to create, some joyful faces, people smiling and happy. And I had an opportunity to travel to Africa, which is where I got the material from. And at the time when I got it, I didn't know what I was going to do with it, but I actually had it. And so what I wanted to do with the series, and what I'm trying to do with the series, is, just kind of this whole expression of Blackness. It's kind of like the material is an expression of that. Black people, we so represented in so many places, in so many kind of ways, that that I wanted that to be, this kind of response to some of this kind of sadness that I had to deal with, like I said, trying to create this whole lynching series stuff. And so that's kind of what that was. It's just, like I said, wanting to do some really joyful faces, and just kind of, take this material and kind of weave it together, because the reality is, and I say this here and we can move on, but I mean, when I think about art and us being artists, I mean, a lot of responsibility come along with that. I mean, when we artists, and because we have this opportunity to challenge some of the realities around us, that I think that it's imperative that we do that. And so I'm always trying to use my work to, challenge some stuff that's going on around us, and hopefully provoke some thought. And so, like I said, this Black Joy Tapestry series is no different, because I always want, as a Black man, for the things that, and this true for every culture, but certainly, Black culture, we see it expressed throughout the world, and I'm hoping that people will see my work and appreciate, the gift that certainly our Blackness get to the world.
Thank you, Ndume. Thank you. I have a question, and I will ask. You're welcome to answer. It's just a general question for all of you. So, has art held a greater role in your life since leaving prison than it did before?
Say that again. I'm sorry.
So this is the question. Has art held a greater role in your life since leaving prison than it did before?
Oh yeah, no, yeah, of course. I think that I mean, if I can actually measure it, and I don't know that I necessarily can, but art, like I said, while I was sitting in 4x9 foot space, 23 hours of the day, that art certainly, like I said, let me being within, and and just kind of tap into this creativity in a way that that I know, but for that, I probably wouldn't be sitting here now. But when I fast forward, certainly, art now is taking on a much more importance in my life, because I mean, look at me. I'm sitting here with you guys, and I'm sure the people that's looking at this live is all over the place. And so to actually have this opportunity to be a part of it, like I said, is truly honoring. And so, yes, art has taken on a whole different expression for me now, because I'm here. I can, like I said, get my work out there, and I'm always, like I said, I don't think I've ever painted anything, that didn't have a meaning about, some stuff that we should all as human beings be concerned about. I'm always trying to use my work to, like I said, you know, challenge some people to get up and do something, get in a good fight.
Thank you very much, Ndume. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining us today. I really appreciate it. And for those who are following us on Facebook, stay tuned. We're going to have our couple of other programs in August and September for marking time. I would like to say thank you to all of you guys for joining us. Really appreciate your time, and have a wonderful, it should be like the end of the day, so in the New York. Thank you for joining us today. Have a great evening.